Recording. Okay, so yeah. All right. So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here. I see we are short a couple of people, but well, nothing can do. I mean, that's their own fault not to participate. So today, you can see what I'm sharing, right? Or not?
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. All right. So the idea of today and the topic of today, our meeting today, is basically to go through how to use a template and to restart various games, or to be more specific, how to use the instructor account, and that is something you can find here. So technically, for example, I'm under my account here, intensive onboarding. So I'm just showing the example of the group that you're in and you're trying to perform in. And when you enter the simulation, I see this training tab, which is not available to you as a player. And I can see here in the list of active simulations the list of active simulations, right? So currently, right now in this product, it's only one, and each product can have their own groups, with their own students and so on and so forth. So the idea today is to go through how games and how, in short, in the simulation we use different templates, how we enable them. And then the other part of our meeting is basically to talk about what it is called to deliver a game. Because I was thinking, really, how could I call this? And basically, delivering the game is the only thing that comes to my mind, because moderating is one thing. It is a lot more important to think through and consider possibilities of really thinking how a certain game could be brought to the audience, so they would not be overwhelmed, or at the same time they wouldn't be too bored. All right. So the main things probably you already know. We played a certain amount of games, and roughly speaking, there is a group, specifically sales team. So this is where you all are, right? And this is the instructor account. So technically, later on, you will receive your own. I will make your own group. I will input your account into that specific group, and also you'll receive a second account, which is used as a trainer account to manage that specific group. So there can be only one coach or trainer or instructor for one group, or that trainer can have a couple of groups. But still, if you're either selling that or using that, you have to know that you will be having to share with other educators or trainers in this specific situation. So there we are. Now, naturally, the main thing, as we call scenarios or templates. Now, the template, there are two terms. Scenario overall is what I call a scenario is actually a whole game. We're speaking about the situation, the starting setup that the students are thrown into, and then later on is what they have to do, how you introduce the theory to them, the game mechanics, and what additional things they have to do. So that is that is something I prefer to call a scenario, because at some point, if we're talking about the creation and delivering of the game, as well as the gaming experience and learning something, then you're the storyteller, or like me, right? You're not just the storyteller, you're actually helping them to experience a certain situation or certain challenges. So the question is really, either that is a more linear scenario, or that is a more open scenario where they have a lot of opportunities to literally die, right? Which means burn down the business and die. And then they need to restart. So maybe that it could be actually one of the goals of the training. Why not? So in subgroups, what we can see is the default subgroup. This function of the subgroup is actually that there can be the main group, and then the main group could be divided into various subgroups. Technically, we do have this functionality. Haven't used it yet somehow. No one ever asked. So I definitely would need just to double check if it works properly, but it's still there. So if, let's say, you have a group of different students, and part of them have to do, part of them want to play one scenario, others want to play a different scenario. So either they can choose from a list as they start, or we can divide them into various subgroups and then launch the whole thing and then see what happens. So this is basically, this is where you can see that it's a default subgroup. And what's next is actually the template, part of a scenario starting template or starting startup conditions, what we call Cloth Road Advanced Intensive. To apply different templates, when we click on Restart and actually select from the list. So as you can see, there are already lots of different templates. For example, balanced retail, budget retail, corporation distress, Cloth Road Advanced, Cloth Road, which is a little bit more limited. Crisis Terminator is like corporation distress, a little bit different settings, but very close. Default settings, something that has majority of things enabled, but okay, whoops, lots of scrolling here. Okay, so scroll sensitive. Okay, so default settings, something with a copy, which means it's usually used for developing new things, and usually that's my stuff. A demo game, then something, every different game has some setup where you can actually see various things, try, for example, HR game growth. It involves 3 different templates where the participant groups actually choose their role in the game as it is, because there are 3 roles. There's actually 2, retailer and manufacturer, just that there are two retailers and 1 manufacturer. But well, we're looking forward to update this game as well. This thing actually is under development. And the motorcycle is the classical one, is pretty close to Cloth Road, just that it has 5 manufacturing facilities. Just Cash is like a startup, just with the cash. Premium retail, about stores once again. Production line and production line advanced and production line are these purely for manufacturing, learning to manufacture. And these are actually mostly aimed at school children, like graduates of secondary education before the university, and just show them how the production works and explain the basics of quality management. Quest for Business Excellence Retail, actually one of the partners developed this game, well, provided the content mostly, that would be called. The main idea is really about how the terms of actually quality management in business could be used and applied for optimization of business as such. So specifically, it's tied to retail. It's an interesting thing, but a little bit more for advanced guys. Retail PNP and PNP1C. So this is a combination for competitive challenge in retail. When we have sort of like a tournament, or at least a group of very competitive people, and the idea that this structure is in one region, so in 3 cities. This structure is actually in 1 city, where each participant has 3 stores. Actually, quite competitive and quite a bloodbath in the process. A retail demo redirect is something. Yeah, I see a question here. All right, understood. So the oops, that one ran away. Okay, so the idea is that retail demo redirect is something where we turn on when before the start we want people just to analyze the basic core experience. Let's say experience the core mechanics of the retail business. Technically, I think some of you already have seen the retail demo. It's just a flash-based toy, just where recalculation comes at a click, and it's really just to see how the retail works. So it's good for people that have less experience to actually give it a try. Retail training is one of the things we do, a little bit more of various features enabled. Risky business is a new thing, 2 functions. This is, I think, Matthew, as I told you about this one, this is actually for based on manufacturing, and this is based on project management, and naturally risk management is what comes in with his one.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is we have a partner in that he's pretty worked a lot for IBM and very big at that PM BOOC really, and then so we're also talking to him about developing additional things on the classical PM body of knowledge book. So looking forward also to develop new things with him. So this is, let's say, one of the things. If you want to play this one, actually, we'll need some support because some things are involved there. Right, what else? So some of them, this is a Simformer demo day. So a couple of demos with this, also using Clothro retail, but in a different, let's say, intensive demo version way. A shoemaker, we make shoes and actually develop technologies. So it involves laboratories and how technologies are developed in our simulation. And as you can see, some of the championship stages are there as well. And just a startup intensive where you have just the cash and off you go to develop your own business. So technically, what you do in the process, you have to just choose the game. Let's see, Corporation Distress, and click on Restart. Yeah, we're going to have in 223. And click on Restart all subgroups of the current group of selected settings. So that means it applies for everyone, everyone, everyone. So yeah, Jugos, you sort of leaded, but sorry, gonna restart you now. So you'll have naturally received a message about the the whole thing is going to reset everyone and you're going to lose the results. Yeah, well, pity, but there we go. And we're done. So that's it. So we wait for the closest recalculation because the restart of the group is made during the recalculation. When the system resets the whole group, all the results are out of the window, and after recalculation, when the students log in, they have a new training situation. So basically, the students will be asked A, to create a new company, B, they will be a subject of a new template applied. So which means if I go to my, well, there's a possibility to be a subject of the template or scenario if you haven't started a business before. So for example, what will happen is I will register my company. I will be asked to actually, well, start the training, and boom, there we are. So that's corporation stress. Now, there are certain situations and there are certain scenarios where the coach right now, because I know right now I receive the same structure of the business or the training as all the students. But some of the templates have a different structure where the coach or the instructor or whatever, moderator of the game, has a different structure of the business. For example, if well, that trainer is supposed to be a supplier of a certain set of goods, he will receive warehouses and products. The main rule is that that trainer has to log in first into that group, and then the system sees him as the coach, gives him all the necessary cash, products, business structure. And as students log in, they might even have a certain pre-built connections or orders from that coach. But for example, right now we have already, as you can see, this business structure is ready. You would see that even the restaurant, there is a supply order automatically developed from my own factory, from my own bread factory, right? So this is part of the template. This is part of the scenario, start of the scenario, where the whole thing actually starts to take action, right? So this is part of the scenario and can be developed, and some of the connections can actually be drawn between the business units within the company structure of the student, as well as it actually can connect to the business structure of the coach. So this is, roughly speaking, how it starts to work. Naturally, before we actually even go to this part, the question probably would go, how do we even do that? So I will show you something I rarely show. Not there, miscellaneous. Right, there we are. So as you can see, there's admin zone. To tell you the truth, right now, our dev team is working on possibilities to make this construct available to anyone from our partners or educators, so they could create their own starting template and actually construct it from scratch. So how does it works? First of all, and we go for this. So these are coaching settings. This is the so-called dean account or the admin account, and this is where you can actually see the templates, right? So this is sort of where you can see the scenario with the starting conditions as well as other conditions, and you will see what kind of things we can actually access here. So let's go to default settings copy, because that one, we can use that to create various stuff and actually experiment. When we go deeper, what you will see is a list of various templates. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about. Now, we plan to develop a construct, and that was from the very beginning. So anyone could actually sit down and develop a certain situation or scenario for the students to receive at the start of the training and work with that, right? So this is the starting template development construct would be available, because right now we usually make that with, these are handmade or pre-made, and this is what we have some various games. So okay, various variations like German retailer, Spanish retailer, manufacturer. This is for HR growth, and so on and so forth. So we can choose these, and for default settings, these old scenarios are available, or we can actually enable even more, simply like this, and clicking Save Changes. Right. So now the system will give us opportunity to choose. Whenever a student will see this whole thing, right, so the ability here is that what we can do here, and a student logs in, he or she will be able to choose from one starting templates, right? If you want to do that. So specifically, when, for example, we have an HR game in mind, the student that logs in, or a team that logs in, has a choice from these free scenarios to start with. So you have to choose one, and that sort of describes your position. Now, so that is what is starting. That's for starters, right? For the start thing. I think the second thing is about the global settings. So one thing is what you receive, right? The cache and all those things. What else is that what you can choose is enable a certain class or category of business units that can be open. So we're talking about the office, the stores, service sector, restaurants, mines, factories, mills, animal farms, warehouses, and laboratory. So this is the intensive version. It's a lot slimmer compared to classical. And in classical, naturally, this whole thing goes together with, with all the things. Right. Hello, David. Okay. Who's David? Olesa?
I was on mute. He is from Lu's team. Don't worry.
All right.
That's our. That's not a spy from the.
All right. Good. Well, we can always kick him out if he's a spy and all that. Anyway. Okay. Yeah, jokes aside. Yeah. All right. So, well, we have a record, so don't worry, David. We will be able to see this whole thing later on. So. Right on. So what we see here is that actually, if we want the whole business to be a lot more focused on retail, for example, and if it's a game like retail PNP in one city, like in one city, we give them free stores. And for example, in this situation, we literally do not allow them to create anything, which means they're tied up in an exact city, and they have absolutely no ability to move out of that city, because they simply cannot create any new business units. And the same conditions apply to everyone. So given they have opportunity to use free stores, they have to locate them in appropriate districts and, well, use the right marketing mix, right? So the proper marketing strategy. And all these free have different somehow need to get their share of the market. And considering that the whole situation is quite intensive because all the competitors have the same conditions, we can see how it goes. So that way we lock them up, right? Now, if we want to give them opportunity to open and expand to new countries and regions, we give them offices, or we don't. So that way they're limited to certain geography. Now, if we open stores for retail business, that means they can open new stores. Additionally, create new business units that belong to service sector. A restaurant is one of those, right? So now they can open mines, factories, mills, animal farms, warehouses, and laboratories, or not. Either way, the fact is that with this, we can control how what kind of freedom they have to develop on and on, and what kind of possibilities they can actually, what kind of things, what kind of possibilities we can give them. So this is their freedom to actually develop business. Now, another thing is here, Angola. So these are the 6 countries that are available in intensive simulation, and naturally we can, once again, lock them up. We can give them at least choose from, they can now develop in only a single country, or we can lock them up, for example, in Europe. And there they are. They can't move anywhere. Also give them additional United States of America and Angola. So they're not in Africa and the United States anymore, so there they are. Oh, actually, once again, back to Spain as a possibility. So this way, depending on what kind of combination you chose to avail, to allow them to develop their business in regards with the business units, same thing goes with geography, right? So that gives them opportunity to, and actually gives us opportunity to control, once again, what kind of freedom and what kind of growth development we want them. Do we want them to focus on business optimization, because that is inevitable when they have to be when they're locked up in a small, let's say, market, relatively speaking. And if we want them to manage growth and show how they can actually grow and what kind of challenges they would face then naturally we open the doors, right? And if no, and we want them to focus on specific business unit or industry, once again, we can focus only on either manufacturing or service sector or retail. So, okay, so now we know the classes, the countries. Selling good mode is something that specifically the participants simulations can actually trade freely with other participants of the simulation. So basically, of all the virtual economy, or actually we can lock down the group. It's also a possibility, but usually nobody asks us. I rarely had any questions regarding this aspect, because most of the people actually were interested in the possibility to enter the virtual economy and actually trade. So that kind of gives them new and more possibilities. The same thing as selling, purchasing is pretty much similar, because we can actually, we can give them access to the all virtual economy and their wholesale suppliers. Or we can actually lock them down to be, for the raw materials and to be bought from members of the training group, or only from specifically configured independent suppliers. And these can actually, we can manage these as well and create them as needed. Once again, it depends what kind of conditions you want to create. Now, performance indicator is something what we use, so something that is seen in the rating. Usually, this is the standard structure, we leave it. Actually, there is a possibility to change it depending what kind of things you want to assess. For example, if you want to have, so cumulative revenue, this is the one. Cumulative profit, this is the second one as the biggest, and the asset value. So if the purpose is to actually grow, not to generate profit, but actually grow revenue and asset value, then naturally you can change these parts of the performance indicator, and naturally the participants during their gameplay will be assessed accordingly. And finally, the redirect demo. The to redirect or not to redirect. Technically, it's like a filter. Whenever you are in the, when you enable it, so there is a specific template actually for that, so you can use that. But the idea is that it gives you opportunity from, whenever a person actually walks into any kind of business simulation, and before you don't want them to start playing, they can actually simply access the business simulation. And how it happens is that by clicking on a specific product that you have given them the access to, they will end up in the retail demo. That's it, right? So they will not exactly access the simulation as it is. All right, so this is roughly speaking the global settings. And as I mentioned, the starting templates, this is something we're working on to give the opportunity to actually develop on your own. And finally, independent suppliers. So this is something that is available. All right, so how about, this one doesn't have any kind of independent suppliers, so it's free, right? So what do you find there in the market, that you buy that, you work with that, and at some point, if you're lucky, you find others that sell something. But as this is an intensive simulation, there's a high risk that you might not find anyone at all. So for that, there are a couple of ways to do this. There's a new supplier. You can choose a product, and that's right now it says all the products and raw materials that might be used and can be used in intensive simulation, starting from natural resources going to materials and semi-products that are used in the process of manufacturing. And then we're going towards agricultural products, right? Grain, meat, milk, potatoes, sugar, potatoes, and grain, for example, are needed for animal farms. And other things like grain can also be reprocessed in the mills to actually turn into flour. And naturally, then foodstuff is something we have, as you see, flour also can be bought separately. So we can create various situations, because what we choose as we create them, first of all, we choose a location, that's a city. So we have to take in consideration the country and customs taxes. And for example, if we choose Berlin, so tires in Berlin, what we can choose? We can choose sales price and quality, as well as maximum volume for one order of purchase. So we input any kind of price, we input any kind of quality, or even. And finally, what we can get also is the maximum volume if we want to limit, because this quality, I mean, the quantity of high quality goods should be limited at some point. So, for example, that's all the students won't be able to buy more than 250 for one store, right? So this is an issue. So they have to be careful and think through how to use this properly. Otherwise, they may actually overflood the market with high quality equipment or goods. So that's a problem. And then we go with new offer, and there it is. Also, there's a possibility, because we saw it to be quite time consuming at some point, we decided, I see already I asked for this thing to be a lot more available, actually a lot more easier to change in the process. So I see that the whole thing is already being changed. So now management becomes a lot easier. Yay, lovely. WA for the development team. Hip hip hooray. So, and if you're actually pretty tired to add these later on, you can actually go for the new suppliers at once. In other words, this is a group category add up. For example, this is for a supply for retail trade. So basically, you go to the category. For example, automotive goods, clothes and shoes, and food stuff. For example, clothes and shoes. Select city of supplier. Let's say Boston. And there are a couple of setups. First of all, depending on the city, it will be reacting to the goods being sold in that specific city. So if no one is there, that's also a sensitive matter. Or we can actually go for the so-called setup, like maximum, medium, minimum. So it's minimum quality, medium quality, and maximum quality. So go to maximum and see what will generate. And boom, there it is. So Boston, right? So we can see in Boston suppliers of all the food that there is, clothing that there is. And as we can see, by default, it's calculated 10 as maximum, because no one is higher than that. And also certain prices calculating actually, and that's pretty close to Boston, as well as the to overall market, which is available in US. So there we are. And naturally, well, our dearest students can actually access the suppliers in the process, save change, and there they are. Oh, and yeah, have to enable these guys. So if you want to disable it, surely just remove it, and yeah, these won't be visible, or just make it visible. And naturally, the same thing goes with the raw materials by category. So these are natural, if you remember the market reports, there you can actually see, well, to be more specific, whenever you see the market reports, you can see the retail, city retail, you can see the service, and also you can see by products and per products, which means these are wholesale suppliers. So you need these guys to manufacture anything. As you can see, there's livestock, manufactured products, consumer goods, foodstuff, agricultural products, materials, as well as natural resources. So let's say natural resources. Once again, let's say this can be Chicago. Well, why not? And there you can actually see that this structure is applied specifically for quality 1, 9, and 20, depending on the situation. So it will be adapting. And also it shows for what kind of technology it is required. Actually, most of the cases, at some, specifically in intensive simulation, we already have a pretty decent amount of independent suppliers available because this is an intensive version and they should be there just for the choice and possibility of training. But in classical mode, there are a lot less visible suppliers because we want that environment to be a lot more dependent on the participants. Surely, for this specific group, you can create a list of suppliers and only your students of this specific group will be able to see it. And there we are. There's iron ore, quality 9, here's the price. Coal, 9, oil, and also, so these are free, also chemical minerals, so these are here as well. So the good part is what we didn't have before is that it always was closed down. But right now we can actually input the values. Oh yeah, well, I have to be very careful because whenever you click here, the system, yeah, it reacts. Okay, probably I'll need to talk with dev guys about that sensitivity. But anyway, truth is you can input these values and change them as you go, which is makes a lot easier to actually run this thing. And just change it or adapt it as you go. This is nice. So yeah, so these are basically the developments, development tools that are available right now. Now, why am I saying this? These are the things that are available right now, because as we speak, for the closest to 3 months, we're developing additional features, and some of the features were not there. Some, as you can see, this is absolutely new. Also, also one more thing, just before I forgot to tell you, because this is also a very new thing. Whenever you enter a simulation and you're like a trainer, there is a possibility to add cash to a specific student's company and either give cash as a bonus or subtract a certain sum if this is sort of a if they've done something wrong, or you see that there is essentially something wrong done, or if, let's say, for that specific company, yeah, so here it is calculated what something should be removed or added, right? So the idea is that it gives opportunities to actually add cash for development. Yeah, the question is really about the legend. How do you call it? Imagine, let's say, you want to create a sort of a business support action during the game if you see that they're actually either struggling, or there's a specific bonus for someone who predicts a certain set of actions, for example, predicts his own sales very well, or at least what kind of market share he or she will get, or what kind of category of goods will be sold better. So, okay, for that kind of tasks for tasks to be completed successfully, that person or a team should get a bonus. There it is. That's actually a great opportunity to actually add that kind of student with a certain money. Okay, so even Lewis is here, right? Well, better later than never. Okay, so hello, Lewis.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the brains out of my listeners here. I'm getting them steamy, and they steam and they run out of their airs, and at the end of the training, usually they have it. So
I see.
yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, there are some bad days as well, but
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll silence your mic and I continue. Either way, this thing is on, and actually I'm recording this, so we'll be able to see it later on. All right.
okay, good.
Great. Okay. So this is basically, actually, there are a lot of additional tools that we're also looking forward to develop, because the main question is really how to balance and how to manage the dynamics during the training group. and how to add additional things, how to change the probability in template, or enable some of the business units and things like that, right, in the process of the game after they already started. So some of the things they're incoming, and some of the things are being developed as we speak, and some of the things are being already developed, tested, and added right away. So that's how, let's say, the initial setup is made. And as I mentioned before, each of you, probably this group will be, I will delete this group, and I will send you your personal coach account. Well, the data, login, and password, where you will be able to set your own group, where your main account will be as a student, and your trainer and your coach will be someone who will be setting up the templates, changing the conditions. So you'll be able to actually click and try those various things all by yourself. All right. Good. Now, there's another thing that we have to speak about naturally, because the first thing is really about the training or instructor account and how to use it. So I think a lot of things will be a lot easier when you will try to manage the whole thing, and you can see it. Though the thing like analytics or financial reports, and these are being also under development, because these are right now a lot more focused on a specific structure, at least as they are, so you can skip them. Technically, what is a lot more important for you as a coach to actually track the rating and see how they're happening, as well as the coach, you will see that you can see a lot more information about your student. Technically, everyone can see at least some sort of information about their competitors. But as a coach, even if you're as instructor, you can actually see a lot more info that is not visible to others. So that is something that you necessarily don't need to log in as they do, under their accounts. You can actually see a lot of their decisions right away from the instructor account. So also to be convenient. Now, the second question really is, after we set up the game, after we naturally get the whole thing started and they log in, they create their companies, the students, and they start playing and they start doing their stuff. The question is really also, which is very important, how do you manage the whole process? Technically, a business simulation, and Simformer Business Simulation, as I always like to call it, is as this simulated business environment, because we have a lot of business simulations and various business simulations mixed up here. What we create is technically an environment for students, people, anyone willing to develop their businesses or actually solve problems under specific scenarios or conditions or situations. So naturally, certain conditions require more preparation, and some just require certain information. So let's say we're talking about the situation where you have absolutely green participants, and they have absolutely no idea what the hell they're into. So let me just show the reading view, and some of you, and probably I hope most of you, actually know what corporation distress is, one of our best sellers, and actually very popular in B2B sector, right? For the corporate ones. Why? Because it's also a challenge and always very good to actually test out the participants at some point to see how well they work in a team or they work alone. Actually, the same game can be played both individually and as a team, and naturally it will challenge absolutely different skill sets. So this is something, I know this is not very good for the presentation, but if you look closer, you see that this is the structure, a very detailed, at some point, structure of the game or the scenario. So first hour, second hours, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So these are the periods, but these are the turns, which means it's a zero turn where no results are available, and these will be available only after the closest recalculation. What happens is that where we divide is what kind of information will be provided, what kind of specific tasks need to be done, and then naturally we divide and input the things or small tasks for our own. And at some point, we will end up having special tasks or explainable basic SBS also what needs to be explained. And at some point, some additional tasks that will be either added or not added, depending on the progress of the game. You see, the problem is, and probably this is the problem of every game, and as we're speaking about, not only just because why games, right? Well, the same topic of gamification. Now, this is not just a simulation. This is a gamified business simulation because it's a lot more fun. It's a lot simplified a lot, and it helps you feel the taste of business, decision making and implementing those your business plans into action and seeing the results. And so technically, it's relieved of the majority of operational tasks. So it can become a lot easier, and it's not that bad. But the problem is that the main challenge or issue is how do we match the difficulty level? Why the difficulty level is important? Well, if you remember the photos, I usually show them with the presentation with my son, right? The pyramid, right? How many times did he put up the pyramid, and how many times did he not, let's say? Now, this is a question or the topic of the golden middle. And these kids are a very good example how kids at this age, and around 1 year or so, is that if the game is too difficult, the kid will actually drop the game because it's too difficult. If it's too easy, he will also drop the game because it's too easy. He already been through this whole thing. So a certain level of challenge is necessary, but that challenge has to be, well, doable, right? A very good example was about how to learn to surf, actually, because, well, actually it's connected more to martial arts, but still a very good example that when you choose a wave, it has to be a little bit, or let's say, you're like a feet or so above your head. Why? It will still wash you away if it will wash you away, but you will not drown. So this is actually can be applied here the same way, because if the game is somewhere in the middle with the doable level of challenge, people will get hooked up. If no, they will simply get a block and simply will stop and lose interest in that game. So in this case, you somehow need to get the balance right? So first of all, you have information about your target audience, who exactly will be playing the game, and then in advance you can actually then prepare, right? How the whole thing can be done. And I will show you various presentations how this thing actually can work and how this game could be delivered differently. So first of all, what we see here is corporation distress, introduction, what kind of game it is, how it is done, and I will go through the structure of the game and how it is delivered hour to hour. So specifically in this case, if it's a classical version of corporation distress, classical not regarding the simulation, but actually how we usually do this, because corporation distress most of the times is being played in intensive version, even though it has a classical version. But this is usually how we do this. So typically it's 6-hour game. Usually it's a very clear, well, it can actually be seen that it's divided somewhere here in a half. Why? First of all, during these 3 hours, we explain the whole basic, the whole concept, right? The basic rules of the game as it is. What do we mean? And you will see that later on. The idea is that if you want to overwhelm and literally lose the audience, you can throw everything at them. The problem is they will get overwhelmed, and if some of them actually are gamers and have at least some sort of a gaming experience, maybe they will adapt. But the truth is, majority of them will get overwhelmed. So naturally, what you have to do is a gradual submersion into the simulation step by step, which means explaining certain processes and giving them tasks to operate and complete certain operations that require immediate attention, right? So specifically, if we talk about turn 1, we start to talk about introduction of the retail business, because retail, first of all, requires supply chain management and naturally getting the prices right and get the sales going. Why? Because this is a fast way to earn cash, and that way they can stabilize the company. And in this situation, because this is corporation distress, this is exactly what they need to do. And as you can see in the corner here, two of the stores are actually in not very good situation, while the one here is actually in a good situation. Actually, this is a trick. This pretty much doing the store that is actually doing well, it's a food store, but it's not the best way to go for the game. But that's another thing about it. So, short introduction, what it is, how it works. You buy from suppliers, you sell to buyers, formulate your product mix, naturally understanding that these goods have different consumption rates, different price elasticity towards elasticity of the demand towards price and quality mixture. And so naturally, you have to fix your own product mix, and in the process, combine all the marketing P's that are available in the management of the retail. So naturally, how the price and quality are combined, how it works. Now, the higher is quality, the higher can be the price and should be the price. And naturally, from the buyer's perspective, it gives you opportunity to ask for a higher price. Actually, two basic strategies are defined. Either you get your profits from the margin or from volume of the sales. And yesterday we actually went this, if you guys remember, this is exactly the same question, right? Do either you make money from the volume or the margin? If you ask for a higher price than your competitor, naturally it will be from the margin, and the price is very similar to your competitors, then you make from volume because you'll be selling more because you have higher quality and you have that strategical advantage. So, and if we move to the, with the higher quality, still the strategy pretty much still remains the same. So question here is really either you have that strategical advantage if you choose to raise your quality above your competitors, or naturally, depending on what happens in the market and what kind of market players there already are and what their decisions are, you can see that there is a possibility to go and actually choose different market segments. And specifically, that goes under districts. Now, this is example how you need to get some feedback, not to be speaking all the time and all the time. I'm like I do all the time, right? And I get your brain all steamy and all that. So roughly speaking, this is a very simple game, and I think some of you already went from this, but actually we can play it. So in this specific situation, and I think because you know the interface, you have to choose from the position of the end buyer and evaluate the proposition given in the store. So technically, you have to evaluate the combination of quality and price, sales price, comparing it to the market averages. So I would like to hear, what do you think about it? Is that a good deal or is not that good deal? Specifically, if we talk about motorcycles.
So the first item, I'd have it double the price since it's double the quality.
You have to choose just a smiley face. Just a nice smiley face. This is sad,
Okay.
happy, or neutral. So
I'm sad.
Okay. All right. Well, not sad, first of all. Okay, who's else sad? Motorcycle. What do you think? Others. Come on, speak to me, people. What do you think? If motorcycle.
I would say neutral because from one side it will bring some profit, but from the other side, you are offering products with a higher quality, so you could sell them at higher price.
Okay. Anyone else?
Neutral.
Neutral.
Because I'm making a profit, so I'm.
But you have to see it from the position of end buyer. See?
Yeah.
Just because there's additional. This is the very, very important moment. And this is one of the things we teach students and all the participants. I know this is hard, and I'm quite often being asked to actually optimize this and give just the necessary information. And then I usually say, hell no. You have to identify the correct information that you need.
Yeah, I'm more competitive because of quality.
Yeah.
And I'm competitive because I'm matching the prices on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So quality-wise, I'm building my reputation.
So which smiley?
On the beginning, I'm neutral, and then I'm smiling because I'll probably sell more units than the average in the end, and then I can build my price over it.
And if you're a buyer?
But if I'm a buyer, I'm probably happy because I am looking around for the same. Price is not an issue anymore because I'm looking just at quality.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a quality-driven market.
Yep.
Right? So it's not bad.
Yeah. So
But it's a win-win situation in the beginning, but not necessarily everything.
Yeah, but yeah, well, specifically in this case, when we ask for this kind of valuation, we don't. The idea is not to confuse people too much and focus only on evaluation. For example, from the perspective of the how to put it? From the perspective of the end buyer, right? So roughly speaking, yeah. Okay, probably gonna silence you. Sorry. All right. So the idea is very clear here, right? From this position, you have to evaluate the proposition from the end consumer, from the role, from the eyes of the end consumer and buyer. Why motorcycle is a good deal? Because as Matthias pretty well told, yeah, the price is the same, but quality is higher. So that's better. If we look at the baseball caps, the price is even higher, the quality is the same. No good. No. Come on. What's the big deal here? The naturally third position is the best because the price is lower, the quality is higher. So, double hooray and all that because that's better. So, and the milk is pretty neutral. Now that is neutral because same quality, same price. No, it's not bad, it's not good, it's somewhere the same, average. And finally, the third case when we have same quality but better price. So roughly speaking, someone fell off. Julia, all right. Okay, so this is basically what happens here is we, in this kind of situation, what we get is the feedback from the audience. Either that is a flip chart. Either that is because in online modes, I usually use, sort of like polls, right? I prepare questions, I throw them at them, and they have to answer it, all right? And if there's online version and there are a lot of people involved, so through the polls, we can actually make this happen and get that feedback. And in online mode, feedback is crucial. And if you're on site, then it's a lot easier because you see faces, you can, walk up to them, well, not exactly kick them, but hey, still touch them, I guess, to a certain extent. But you can literally feel that feedback from them, and that's good. And it's a lot easier than online. No. So, but the main idea is they start to talk to you. They start to talk to you. You can see if they're thinking and if they understand what exactly you're talking about, and that is quite crucial. And naturally, as we move on, then we move to a different question, and that's specifically explaining what a location is, how these districts actually of geographical, districts in every city, how they differ, right? So we're speaking about the place, specifically market segment. Hello back, Julia. So basically, the idea is to show what is really, and then explain, right? So it's quality sensitivity and price sensitivity, as well as level income. So the rent price shows that trendy neighborhood is the most expensive one. Naturally, level of income of the local populace and trendy neighborhood is the highest, and they're the highest. Have the highest quality to sensitivity. So they're the ones you will be paying. You will be selling Ferrari to, right? These are the guys that have, they're filthy rich. They can buy a lot of stuff. This is good. But naturally, the question is, are they that numerous compared to the mainstream that can be found in residential areas as well as city center? Most probably not. And naturally, then this is where we can draw a line also between this, which is a microeconomical data, to actually look a little bit deeper into this and actually tap into macroeconomical data and double check their level of wealth, income level, which means their buying power. And also what is important to see the numbers of the population. But roughly speaking, this is where we talk about the location, right? Why it's important to track the right district. And this is market segmentation. Good. And naturally, this is another small task where they have to correlate, right? Where would they put up in considering these kind of conditions? like the ones here, where they would put up a specific product here on the map. So usually it's very good if you have a projector and some post-it notes, and they can draw some stuff and put it up. And there's a slide discussion. Now, the problem is that for the discussion like this, you don't have that much time. And this actually task is not very suitable for online training. This is purely for on-site. But still, it's a good thing, so you just double sure that you receive a proper feedback from them, that you have the connection with them and they understand. And next thing, which is very important because we're talking about the tasks given this hour, is actually to somehow for them to manage their, well, not exactly sales, but actually really focus on supply chain. The question is really, how do they plan sales and supplies, right? Because supply chain, or at least orders, are directly tied to some things, to those numbers of things you plan to sell. So roughly speaking, it's simple. Analyze the market, test your sales forward during the game. Now, this is actually, that doesn't happen, and I've seen that multiple times, because people buy 50, sell 50, and they're happy about it. And they're not exactly sure how much exactly they could sell. And that's an issue. Now, naturally, balancing is very crucial, or in other words, going lean. Having a little bit of extra is important, but not overdoing it. And naturally, at some point, being careful with the overall cash and how you use it, because you can really go down pretty fast. So this is a very classical one, a very simple, really, where you have to plan and input sales volumes, how much you think you would actually sell, and at the same time, how much do you think you would need to buy in order to sell that amount. Simple, right? In order for that to happen, what you need to analyze the market, and you can actually see, this is inside in the center. These are your data. So the price, the quality, as well as what you have in inventory. At the same time, down there, we have your competitors. So his price or her price, quality, and volume of sales. So surely speaking, all these positions are better if you compare them to the market, to the competitors in the market. The question is really then how a majority would think, and how much how much they think they would sell, considering that this market is quite so the overall we have opportunity to see here is just to take a look and to think, okay, so what possible would be possible to do here, and how much they would sell. It's understandable that in most cases you would actually sell the same amount as your competitors, or maybe even more. And whenever I tell to the students that actually you would sell the same thing or even more, what happens is that they usually think, okay, 20. So we sell 20, order 15, yay, we're happy. And this is actually not very good, because then you have to correct it right away from the very beginning to tell them that, guys, you need to have at least some sort of extra. Okay, we buy 20. So I said, okay, if you have an extra, which means that if you can buy more, you can sell more, you will sell more, and the whole thing will move through, which is good. So the same thing goes with clothing as well, but with the, let's say, food here, with sausages, the situation is different because your inventory is pretty high already. So yeah. But considering the conditions, these are a lot better to what we see in our competitors. So will we go over 1,000? We don't know. But that already involves the market volume and additional information. But so far, when we speak about information available from the trade hall, this is exactly what we can see see. I know that some of you already know a lot of information about this, and but we have to be careful to understand that there might be people that will see this for the first time in their lives and might actually get scared or overwhelmed. So this is what exactly we want to avoid. And roughly speaking, this is a very simple task. Optimize current retail chain, price, quality, inventory, and supplies. And actually, everything is manageable through trade hall. And usually we show them the trade hall, how we operate, and how the whole thing works. And then they sit down and analyze all 3 stores and focus only on trade hall. Because technically, they don't have that much time. After I'm done with the theory, with the tasks, Optimally, if you know, there's no problem, no one is late, and the whole thing is done previously and everything is done properly, then, and we start it in time, then everything is okay. And well, unless you start 15 minutes before that, then you have extra you know, extra time, then it's okay. So simple, right? And what they have to do is simply sit down and think through the whole thing. That's it. Input their decisions, and then technically they're done for the hour. Individually, that's a lot of things to go through. As a team, maybe no, but considering that there is a teamwork involved and they have to discuss the whole thing and agree how the whole thing goes, then it's not exactly easy. So let's move on. So this is a trade hall, you know that. This is, sometimes we give a report. So these are an average sales, how much they would sell or how much they usually sell in respective market. But this can be given only if we're talking about, well, a specific city. Otherwise, if there are random cities involved, this cannot be given. And this is the structure, typical structure of the hour. As I mentioned, I love to end up here if that happens. Then I give them 20 minutes, and sometime here we input the final decisions. And usually if the group is involved, we have group presentations of the decisions they made. And if possible, we have group, the presenter, actually the rotation, we rotate that position. So we check everyone's ability to actually to speak and briefly present what they did, and you know, define their findings as well as you know, insights and stuff like that. And then as we move towards, oh, surely explain the timing. Definitely don't forget the timing, because this is quite essential, because certain things arrive at the same virtual week, and sometimes some things arrive only after recalculation or next virtual week, which is important for proper time and task planning. Naturally, as move on, yeah, a couple of possibilities to show this, either this or that. It's question, probably this one is a little more easier to understand. So, I mean, there's no limits for explanations or how you put it up, right? So as we move on through the hours, we have additional explanation of store size, what kind of possibilities it brings, as well as what kind of dangers. You know, the bigger the store, the more it's expensive, the more people they can hire, but that means more salaries they have to pay. So you have to be sure that you have all the things you need to sell, as well as you can, you know, properly manage it, as well as the expenses. So another practice that we bring in here is actually how to act with the store management. If, let's say, we can see that there is, for example, in the first case, we see the smallest store, and this is this one. Yeah. Okay, not pretty. Okay, so here we are, smallest store, product line. The revenue is pretty normal. The problem is that our occupancy of the inventory is pretty high, and the visitor satisfaction is pretty low because there's a big line in front of the store. So the question is really not only about the size of the store, most probably the personnel, but you can't hire more personnel if the store is small. So naturally, natural solution is question is what kind of solution you should choose. In case number 2, we're talking about a pretty good example. A medium-sized store, pretty decent product line, nice revenue, good inventory occupancy, as well as excellent visitor satisfaction. So, yay, cool, right? Elite. Do you need to do anything? Probably no. And similar situation here, just that it's a very big store, a very small product line, and revenue is a lot smaller. So probably these are suggested solutions for the moment. So increasing the store size, other things probably as well, like, you know, personnel. And this biggest store size actually could be optimized because technically you pay a lot for rent. So yeah, simple. But the idea is that now we try to combine some of the variables they manage and show them the connections. And now this is the hardest part, because our simulation is actually, well, it requires systematical thinking, and exactly what it shows you and gives opportunity to actually to work and for the participants to discover those opportunities, to discover those chances, and how they could actually see the system and the connections between the various P's of the marketing as well as other business functions and processes. Naturally, what we go through is employees, the main variables, a number of employees, salaries, qualification, how it's connected, and how we have to balance. A small task really to identify the best HR strategy in retail. You know, what's the best, what's the worst, and once again, smiley faces, sad faces, and all that. And yeah, you know, what would be the best from the consumer position, and naturally qualification and number of employees is always good. Well, in healthy consideration. And naturally the advertising, how the whole thing works, right? Pretty much clearly stating that free as X are covering the city population, free times with the number of contacts is more than enough. Going overboard is unnecessary. And naturally that, don't forget that efficiency here is how you use money to attract or to generate contacts. But never forget the store as well as office size, employee quantity, salaries, and other things, because then you'll be throwing, right, not only it is important to see how efficiently you use money to attract people, but also you have to be ready for what comes afterwards, which means you have to be ready for increased numbers of visitors and so on and so forth. So this is quite crucial. And naturally, then additional thing, just a simple task about the advertising. What kind of percentage would be achieved? Let's say what is recommended or averagely is used, and what is actual, and what kind of things could be. So one of the examples. And naturally, task 2, when we add additionally that, you know, support operational activities of the retail chain that were given previously, and then optimize size in HR, launch advertising campaigns. So now, basically, after 2 hours, they have seen the whole retail as such, right? In simple way. At some point, yeah, so same stuff. We show them the tutorial. If they have any questions, we answer them. Most probably we'll tell you how to see the market reports, naturally, because usually people ask for them themselves if they're pretty much, you know, competent. And then we move on to turn, you know, a third hour, explain roughly about the factory, some additional things that come in, like specialization and equipment, and, you know, how the whole business works. And second thing is a restaurant, and it's a lot easier to also add service level because there's such a thing as equipment involved. So this part can actually be explained differently. Depends on the participants, depends on how you want to give it. Can show you a different explanation of production, let's say. And then we move on with the game, because after the third hour, basically, the participants start to make decisions on their own. They already have everything here, and literally, we only help them out to expand, because at some point in the maximum program, if we're talking about the maximum plan for the game, is that for fourth or fifth hour, the participants actually for the fourth hour, participants should be developing their businesses. And for the third, and during the fourth or third hour, we actually give them additional 5 million. So they would receive, hopefully they show good results and they stabilize their business by that time, but then we give additional cash for them to actually look forward towards, well, expansion, right? And they have an opportunity to expand their retail business into a new country, and then maintain the business activity in Spain or initial position, as well as expand towards different countries. So we're not exactly leaving them alone. We're piling up additional tasks, right? And that's how we go through additional things they have to go through, reviewing, and little by little leaving them alone at some point. Now, this is something that comes in, and from the operational point of view, business management, they know everything, right? Well, sort of. But as I mentioned before, we have some additional things, which mean these are special tasks. I don't know if you can see these, but these are special tasks, and it involves auctions. It involves predictor contests, where you predict the sales, how much you would sell in a specific product, and you receive certain bonuses. You can actually then to focus on somehow getting the, let's say, either a different forecast, either reaching a certain best results in a specific city. We can think of a variety of different tasks depending that could come in line with this scenario, considering that the environment and the situation, I mean, the environment itself, the simulation itself, is considerably is closer to a sandbox rather than traditional business simulations. So you can actually ask them to do certain compilations or calculations using the data provided in the simulation. If they're students, if they're a lot closer to people from business, you can actually get some sort of a gamified way to ask them to complete the tasks they usually complete during their work. So naturally, they can focus on other things. For example, or you can actually make a mix of all these various tasks. So it gives you opportunity to actually, enrich this experience, at the same time control the flow. All right. Now this is very important because you have to manage the dynamics. Technically, from your side, yeah, I know it's going to be pretty rough, but it's like this. From your side, the energy and the things you provide go like this, right? Technically, this is by the end of the third hour, you're done with explanation of theory. At some point, if everything is okay, and usually it's the same thing anyway I can see it, as people begin to understand a lot more and more and more, their interest begins to rise, increases, and the same thing actually I've seen with the American students, undergraduates, nothing that of amazing, but they were actually very passive in the very beginning. A couple of those are actually got hooked up and interested. By the end of the training, by the end of the month, everyone was interested. They were working with their store, they're trying to maximize the whole thing. Some of them actually were doing very, very well, some not so well, but they were trying. And that's the interest. We got them engaged. So you get the engagement, you get their focus, and at some point, if you see that they're failing behind and there's some of them having problems, and they're here or here, we have some specific tasks to get this whole thing up and get them a lot more motivated and get the flow. So control the flow, and that's exactly why special tasks are needed. And how do you use them? Either you can use and that's specifically why we have certain roles, right? For a specifically different role for the trainer or for the instructor to actually manage the whole thing and introduce either sell certain goods or introduce certain threats. Good example probably which comes in what happens if we're talking about a little bit different game structure or demo. For example, we're talking about Simformer introduction. This is sort of like a demo day. It's a little bit different structure, right? Why? Because this thing is for demonstration purposes, right? Because we need to show them, and at some point there are two things. There's a choice, right? Whenever you're showing a game and you give the opportunity for people to click and try certain things, the risk is that, and this is mostly done for the business people, we have to understand that differently from students or academia that are a lot more curious. Business people don't have that much time, and usually they are there for a couple of hours to see the whole thing, maybe touch something, but definitely not to go that deep into it, unless we're talking about learning and development departments, and they're at this point they're a lot closer to academia and they're a lot more active. But if, let's say, we're talking about typical business people with their intensive agendas and busy days, what you need to show them is the beauty of the whole simulation. And one of the ways actually is cloth road. Cloth road, why? Because it's a vertical integration and provides opportunity to see how added value chain is created and managed. So as you go and explain something and talk about the simulation to people that are actually not familiar with business simulations as such, then we literally can see and explain that, okay, this is retail, these are main 5 P's you have to manage as you go, and that way you can get the price, you can choose the products, you can actually choose the location. We're giving it from the beginning, then naturally you can hire personnel and you also can do the promotion, right? Technically, these are 4 Ps. Personnel actually belongs to the 7 P theory, while product, place, price, and promotion, that's 4 Ps, the basic 4 Ps. The personnel comes in later on, but still very important, and you can't deny that. So we went through this, just as you can see, a lot of things, and actually it's the same, almost the same slides, just that they're given in a different manner. Yeah, okay. This is where I usually... yeah, I always fail to correct this mistake, sorry. Yay, finally. So I can mix pleasure with business. Good, lovely. So, and here we can go actually, as we move on, as you can see the products and prices, location, store size, without those small tasks, because you don't have the time. You have to talk about them. Most probably, if people are pretty much familiar with all of these theories, they will understand where's the connection, right? And they can input some of the values and even touch the interface and do some things. But you don't necessarily will have that much time. I will show you a different case how I do this demo day, let's say, and give it a try for them to do something, specifically if we're talking about very, a bigger group of people. So we just go through overall all marketing Ps and how they are managed, the timing, and basically what kind of things are managed and what kind of outcomes we generate with all these. So there's place, product, price, promotion, personnel, and what we affect is the popularity of the store, number of visitors, that overall, well, thanks to the personnel and all the proper balance of the marketing mix, to convert into sales. And then, depending on what kind of structure it is, either we leave them alone with the retail for the end of the hour, but it's also dangerous if this is online meeting or even not online meeting, you need contact. So leave them experiment and do some clicking and setting up things. Most probably will be showing some of the interface manually. And then you can move on to production. A production structure is a classical one. I usually use these explanations that, production overall, simple, right? You take spare parts, equipment, personnel, know-how, boom, you have a bike. Yay, you can sell it. Roughly speaking, how the, well, let me probably show. I hope majority of you have seen this thing. I hope. Yeah, all right. So roughly speaking, the question is really about the quality management, how you manage the quality. So this is how optimum, how more or less it works. So there's quality of materials, and then there's quality of equipment and the level of employee qualification. Naturally, you have to match these, and then a certain quality of final product will emerge. Sort of, if that would be, ideal world. But there's such a thing as level of technology that acts as a limiter, and naturally, question is how it works and how you do it. And no matter how much you spend, if you don't know how to use that, it will not help you to produce a better product. So what happens is that you have to find that optimum solution, also considering that depending on the level of technology, there's a high effect on what kind of quality of equipment you have to use. And naturally, that affects a level of employee qualification. So if you go below what is required according to technology, there is a minus. However, the quality of materials, you're pretty much free to use as you want them. And that helps at some point to do something a little bit different. And we're talking about a possibility to save on quality of materials, and maybe you will not receive the highest possible quality of the product, but maybe that is not needed, because very often in most of the cases, sometimes market is actually pretty happy with what you can produce here. Right? Question is how you sell it or for what kind of price. And when you start to look at the market situation, sometimes you don't necessarily need to buy quality materials from this level. It can be lower, and you can have a pretty reasonable quality achieved and actually can sell it. The question is really at what point you want to manage the cost, because the costs you want them to be as low as possible. But naturally, this is where you have to do it, because going over the red line, well, quality, you can't achieve more quality. At the same time, it's unreasonable to have higher costs with the same, for maintaining the same level of technology and the end quality of production. So, and some explanations how timing in SBS in production also differs. So roughly speaking, yeah, even though at some point you could say that you have more variables to manage, right? Size, raw materials, equipment, personnel, technology, price, and advertising. Technically, I could say that managing production is easier. It's a little bit slower, still easier, and less, well, there's a very clear flow as well as very clear explanation how the whole production is. You either produce it or not, and if you manage it properly, you have a better quality. And depending if you actually go into advertise your production as a manufacturer, you actually develop such a thing as a brand value, right? If you advertise it. And then naturally, if you advertise in the correct location where most of your retail clients are, that's once again converts into sales. That says at this point to something as the goal in most cases. And that's roughly speaking how the whole thing goes. Usually this is when we cover 2 hours with explanations, also showing the interface, how it works, recalculations are being done. That a lot of things need to be explained because people usually have a lot of questions and they also want to click. If you want, and they have very curious. Okay. Right. If you have very curious, hold on. Yeah. So if you have very curious people and you have a demo day for a lot more people and mostly online, then naturally you have to explain them what will be happening. And let's say you're covering a big company of people in that are actually in one location, but from different companies, right? This is not individual demo for a company, but actually for the group of people, group of companies. Some things have to be pretty much clear, and how the whole thing works have to be stated. So, from 2 to 3 hours. How it goes, a certain explanation of game mechanics is necessary because you don't want them to be overwhelmed. So this is a lot more suitable for online. We choose Simformer Demo Day template. Boom, 3 stores, 3 different countries. Different countries, naturally, different possibilities, different markets. We go through the same explanation as you saw before. We do introduce small subtasks to have their feedback. And as you can see, I actually bolded out to the things that should be. Okay. Yeah, my mouse actually is acting weird. Oh, okay. Now I know why. Right. So what happens is the whole thing is bolded out for it to be easier to be seen. But it's absolutely the same task. As we move on, it's the same thing they have to do. And in the process, the whole core explanation is about what kind of experience the participants go through. And through that kind of experience, they can see it. And these are L&D specialists or HR people that actually focus on the training. Naturally, for them, it will be easier to understand and to imagine how this whole thing can be used. And through this kind of explanation, we focus on task 1.1, manage inventory, prices, and quality. And you show how it works. And there on the end, start going deeper into the whole interface, doing things and trying to optimize it, right? The difference here is that we cut the hour basically into 3 different structures. So the first hour is basically you just explain the whole thing and give, let's say, 10 minutes for explanation, 10 minutes, from 5 to 10 minutes to actually go into interface and change something. At some point, some templates can actually be launched before they even start to train. Why? Because after the first recalculation, there will be already certain sales results, and it will be a lot easier to show and explain and for them to analyze the market because they will see the certain sales already happening. All right, so they will have certain history, and through a position of retail training, even if it's a demo, it will be a lot easier to explain the whole thing. So first thing, yeah, same thing, right? Manage your inventory, prices, and quality. Done. Supply chain. Then we go through explaining what it is, right? The location, why it is important to match the right location. What's the size? It's a little bit different structure, but so the location, the size, and then naturally a little bit of practice about the store size, and then what store size should be better. As a result, manage size and location of your stores. A small task, they'll go in, review the whole thing, maybe increase it, maybe decrease it, but that way you can give them, 1 hour becomes a lot more dynamic, and at the same time they listen and they do something, and they listen and they do something. It's not like, once again, the same way I speak, your brains become foamy, and a lot of steam goes out, and some people might even fall asleep or something like that. Yeah, I know, difficult. Bear with me here. So explaining additional things, we move on to additional tasks, practices, personnel, and boom, the end of the hour. Then what would they go? Some recalculations, some explanation how the whole thing works, some things that come in faster, some things that come in slower. We move on to second hour, give additional tasks, and already additional tasks to simply advertise. At the same time, give explanation how micro and macro thing works, and expansion comes in, right? What kind of things they should go to. And as well as next to 2 task becomes the 2 free task, taking care of your offices. Why? Because if they did the expansion, not only if it's in the same country, then specifically, even if the size is involved, offices are definitely what they need to take care of. Technically, without their expansion that they don't necessarily need to focus on the offices, because there is not much of a change or of things happening. So offices should be fine according to the template. But as they start to grow, and if they want to open new additional stores in different countries, naturally they need to take care of the offices. But for the time being, what they need to take care of is really about their offices. So the whole business could be, doing pretty well. And the truth is, from if you compare the amount of tasks from first and second hour, you would see that second hour is a lot freer, right? A lot more space for them. Simple. You will receive huge amount of questions, as well as there will be a lot of analysis after recalculation. What happened? Why did it happen? What kind of mistake they made, and what they should be focusing on more. So we give them more time to breathe, but at the same time, we try to focus them back into the simulation. And as we move to the third part, is boosting your business with business boosters or investments, optimization, when we analyze some of the cases and what we can actually improve. And once again, price, product, place, personnel, promotion, and then scaling, as well as improving administration, right? And that's basically and for the demo, because most of the cases, the majority of the time, as we finish the presentation, by the end of the third hour, or at least as we can see with the lack of dynamics from our side, we move towards the simulation, because a lot more things began to happen in the simulation. So that's, let's say, how I structurize the business games. Either this is demonstration, or either this is a lot more complicated game, so the whole thing would be introduced. As we spoke about the risky business, give me a sec here. That's a bit of a different structure, but I will show you how it looks like. And this is important because, well, this is actually introduced. This is a lot more closer to the, well, technically, it's a lot more closer to the development of the games, but sort of hits the topic how it could be done differently, right? So we will talk about that later on, about the development of the games. But just shortly, you will see that this is a similar game. From one point, it's simple. There is you have two factories, right? Shoemaking and baseball caps, but there are three general tasks: execute expansion project in manufacturing subsidiaries, maintain operational activities, and provide a steady flow of production, identify and manage the project risks. And as we move through, we can see that actually this expansion involves a certain amount of time, and there are small subtasks within each of these projects, right? So at some point, there are we're given two possibilities. Either to tell them about those specific tasks or not. If they're very tough, surely they can decide on their own. If no, we should actually guide them. And naturally, drawing project risk list, then project risk diagram, and then project risk response plan is something what they do. And actually, discussion is at the end of the whole thing. So this is where they discuss the possibilities. The idea in this game, and more specifically Risky Business, is to force them to go through a very familiar, business project execution plan, which is very similar to what we people do in a real world, because there are various stages and there are clear tasks at the end of the project, but there are still small subtasks that you have to execute. At the same time, there are various threats that hit in actually here. So as we move on, naturally, we explain the manufacturing, right? And then, see that some of these things not translated. And, some of the things that you have to start moving. So basically, we're talking about some of the factories, they have to be expanded, and one of the factories have to be moved. And this is actually a structure of the Risky Business Advanced because it also involves stores. Now, this is something that, additional thing that hits in. So yeah, I have to update that one. The idea is that we go through the basics of the factory management, how it is done, how it's managed, the interface, either explained in the slide or through showing on the simulation live, buy equipment, and then naturally choosing the suppliers and how the timing and equipment and personnel at this point, and then also the suppliers, right, that are crucial, and basically why it is so important to match the timing. And at the end of the hour, what we will usually explain them what kind of things they have to do just to be sure that the whole thing goes. The idea is that if they execute everything properly and evaluate their risks and find a solution how to deal with that risk, they have pretty good profitable business. And the end of the game, they're actually in the plus. If they don't, they have a lot more expenses, and that sort of brings them down. And the idea is that as they play and they relocate, they close one of the factories and open a new factory in a different location, naturally, they encounter some of the challenges. And in certain cases, to be more specific, as they have to execute certain tasks, in some cases, we are basically the reason they actually encounter certain dangers, because initially from the beginning of the game, the main supplier of raw materials is actually the moderator. And at some point, he raises the price. He gets the limit on the maximum purchase order, and that is technically a very clear risk. And naturally, as a result, the good thing is that also the moderator is also the purchaser or the buyer of the majority of production that is being sold, and he buys that production for a higher price. In the advanced version, there's also possibility to sell also to the trainer, and as well as try to sell it in a retail store. So a couple of possibilities, couple of things to be managed, and different level of risks being involved. So, and that you can see here how I try to replicate the project management here, involving different small subtasks in one big task. Now, if they manage to do it in time, do the proper time planning, it's up to them. But I guess you can evaluate it later on, right, Matthias?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
A second to unmute.
Yeah, but you get to the idea how I've tried to solve this. It's pretty much same thing when we have, let's say, a real project on our hands and how we work with that. All right. So okay, that much with the overall presentation. So you see here a variety of different ways to actually deliver the game. Actually, I'm also in various onboarding processes. There is one interesting question from Indian partner regarding a very, very simple game. And a truth is that this whole thing about retail we talk about here actually can be delivered in not in one, but actually this whole thing here could be delivered in 3 turns. Why? Because people don't go for expansion; they just manage all marketing piece, or even just the warehouse, just the trade hall, in a couple of turns, seeing what kind of prices would be working well and whatnot, and then only later on, when they surely know how to manage this part, they can move on to a second element. So we know surely that they optimize the price, they know the supply chain, and they optimize the prices, and sometime afterwards they can actually move on and adding up additional variables, manageable variables, and additional marketing piece. And in the end, they have a very clear picture how the whole thing works. The problem is, once again, the one I mentioned, is how to get the right level of complexity and level of challenge for the audience. Because sometimes it's easy if you know your audience. It's easy if you can really work with them efficiently and everything is nice. But sometimes it's a problem. Oh, I think, Matthias, if you have a question, ask right away, considering that, yeah.
All right. Well, I remember from the beginning of the game, we were settling how to prepare the conditions from each team.
Mm-hmm.
So we set how much money they have, what the conditions they have.
Yeah.
As we set them, it's the same conditions for all teams, right?
Yes.
I was wondering, and maybe this is something to think about in the future if it's not available. Can we actually create an equal conditions for the teams? For, let's say that I want to one team to be a oligopoly, and the other teams to be small competitors.
Oh, we can do that.
So this is like startups competing with a big one.
You can do that. Technically,
this
when
is
you
very
go,
interesting for startups, right?
yeah. Well, technically, you can do that. The idea is that whenever you choose a specific template, for example, in HR game, the conditions are a little bit different. For example, in HR game growth, the conditions are different. To be more specific, there are 3 roles that you can get. The German retailer, the Spanish retailer, and manufacturer that is actually being based in Ukraine. The idea is that actually German retailer has better position because the wealth level is higher there, and the country itself is, well, technically bigger. In Spanish, you have to find a different marketing strategy. So basically, their conditions are very similar. But if you look closer from the operational point, they're pretty much similar because they receive absolutely the same level. They receive the same conditions. But if we look at the sorry for meeting you. But if we look from the from more strategical point of view, then German retailer has more possibilities. On the other hand, if we look, for example, at the manufacturer, he's absolutely in different condition because he's manufacturing, he's trying to sell, and the idea that in this game we want to develop more of a partnership feeling or explanation, or the feeling how decisions have to be made, because this game is actually for HR people to understand the decision-making process from the perspective of top management. Now, the thing you're talking about, actually, this is available because if I enable different templates in the beginning of the game, I can set up my own templates and give like position startupper, oligopoly, monopoly, or big guy, advanced guy, something like this, or you can actually set it up from the beginning. So there's a possibility to do that. The problem is that you have to review very carefully. Well, you'll be able to do that kind of things a little bit later on. I think about in a month or so, when the whole thing will be up. But the main question is really to estimate more or less the environment, and not to overdo it for the retail, for the small guys, because if you give too much for the for the oligopolies, there will be no free spots. On the other hand, it's also a very good question what kind of experience you want to create, because if I understand, your question mainly goes about what about if you're, what if you are a startup or a small business in oligopolic market? So, roughly speaking, you've been had.
Yeah. It's, for instance, the whole point
No
is
way.
when you're looking at innovation,
Hmm?
oligopolies should have a disadvantage of they move slower. They have more bureaucracy. So, for instance, if I would work with that, I would be the oligopoly. The moderator would play the oligopoly and intentionally would move slower than the startup.
You can do that. Yeah, you can do
And
that.
all the other players would be the startups trying to compete with me, but creating innovative, products at a faster pace. But I would have a heavier impact because I will have better pricing conditions. Let's say.
Yeah.
So it's timing in everything. That could be a proper game, right?
Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a good idea. Just that the question is really about the how to create new products at the same time, alternative creation of new products. Because we don't exactly create new products. We can sort of balance out with the quality.
Okay.
But
so products, but on different conditions, on timing.
Yeah. Well, basically, you can be a lot more adaptive. You can go and be technically, at the same time, you can't be in the same retail. For example, if oligopolic usually go for the mainstream or the bigger share of the market just to control it, right? Truth is that if we're also looking forward to sort out a way to affect the macroeconomic conditions, but that's a long-term promise. But the idea is that as if a retailer jumps in, as a startupper, he can actually introduce even a smaller market, small packages, but high quality stuff. He can affect the market, and if let's say startups agree on that, and they create a very high, well advanced, well, if we're talking about the developed market with high education indicator, right? So that means that we have a very sophisticated market. The problem is that you're selling cheap stuff or medium quality stuff because it's a lot. Well, it's more profitable, right? You buy it for a cheap price and sell it. Boom, there it is. For their cases, but you have, let's say, 100,000 square meter store, and it's sort of a difficult to shift it right, left to right. It's a big business, and it's sort of like bureaucratically speaking, it's very difficult to shift it very fast. They can jump in with small stores like 500 square meters or 1,000 square meters. Boom, jump in with their high quality product, pretty well balanced marketing mix, and they can shift towards the market a lot faster than you would be. And at some point, they would generate a certain change. And question is, will the oligopolic market with its slow reaction will be able, to react that fast? So yeah, it's doable.
Resources, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting, but it's also a possibility. But yeah, this is a very good example how it works. Yeah, you get the idea right.
In the future, if I may make a suggestion, I don't know if I can, a new vector or a new factor that could be input into the game is innovation, right? Innovation is another, it goes along with price and quality and everything else. It's a new, let's say, marketing element that is recognized a little bit what we were discussing earlier, and how adapted or how immersive it can become. How fast it can be integrated into the market to become mainstream, right? So that's interesting for the future, for the future versions.
Yeah,
That's
well,
really
roughly speaking, probably here is a question how, to what extent and how it's not that easy to implement new
of
variables.
course it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
For
complex.
example, I had the idea and quite a while now when we had a discussion regarding possibility to introduce a new variable which is called design. Basically, we're dissecting the quality, and because technically, if there's a quality of the product, there's such a thing as design. If we
It
look
would
at
be a subset.
come again.
Mhm. It would be a subset of quality perception.
Well, it's a very interesting moment because I think this is a balance between quality and design. It's a very good example. For example, at some point, what happened that if we talk, for example, if we talk about Apple, right? At some point, it was a top at design and quality, but at some point, some of the products actually they're pretty much good at design, but the quality they're not top notch anymore because others maybe have the quality, their design is lower, but the quality can even be higher than the
Yeah,
Apple. So yeah.
quality. When you say quality, you understand because of your background. Probably you understand quality as a technical prowess, and other consumers will understand quality as more on design side of quality. So
Yeah,
quality is a
so
perception; it's not objective, right?
yeah. So at this
So
point,
here,
well,
it's just
technically in the simulation quality, it takes everything.
it's just one thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you open quality up, it will have to be an antecedent or a subset. Although innovation is completely separate.
Well, that's also a good question. How to introduce that
On the same
innovation?
level as quality,
Yeah.
not below it, not a subset.
Yeah, no, it's a different thing. It's well, a question how to introduce. If we talk about innovation, the question is really how to introduce it as a business booster, as a fad. And the problem is that we do have sort of a seasonal change, but it's not that much well introduced because seasonal change is a lot more closer to the agricultural, specifically farming and stuff. And at some point, there is a certain sensitivity towards consumption rate regarding the seasons. But this is also a field where not that is exactly terra incognita, but yeah.
If I may, you can introduce that with using business cases. For instance, I have a bunch of those. For instance, the gaming platform market. It's essentially innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you look at the latest consoles, right? The console wars. That's a basic 20-year ongoing war based on innovation. Everything is innovation on that. So it's actually the defining factor, and everything is built over on top of that. So if you have a mechanic, an environmental mechanic, on the game, and you want to introduce it on the logistic, on the mindset, that's one new scenario that you can create.
Well, technically right now, because we can develop technologies in laboratories, this is where we technically represent the development or in innovation part through development of technologies. We develop technologies in laboratories, and with the introduction of new level of technologies in manufacturing, we can raise the quality of the product. The truth is that why the whole thing about the systematical development is the question here strategically now lies: how deep should we go in certain areas? And because right now a lot of decision making is optimized. Why? Because it allows a very clear shift from operational to tactical to strategical levels.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the result because and that majority of that comes from optimization of these activities and generalization, let's say, these main key performance indicators, right, or the factors. If we start to dissect them and expand, we got to be very careful because then it has to touch all the industries and all the products. And that automatically, because we're talking about virtual economy here, and that becomes, a bigger project, a bigger topic, and we have to be careful here, because any kind of introduction or development is a very sensitive matter. Yeah.
And long term, right? So listen, if later you want, I have explored innovation as a predictive tool based on technology comparison. And since you already have a technology construct, let's say, in the games, that could be a link. So I'll send you the paperwork later, and maybe that's an answer for you.
All right. Okay.
All right.
All right. Sure.
They have a frame. I have a theoretical framework for that, so that could be a way. They already have the whole setup there.
All right. Great.
All right.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
you actually say it's sustainable innovation or disruptive innovation, and that impacts the whole market. So that's interesting.
All right.
Yep. All right.
Okay. So, any questions from the participants, because we're technically closing up to an end for today.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's always interesting. So, any other questions from the participants?
Not so far. Everything is good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, well, as mentioned, I'm probably then stopping the recording. According to the plan, yeah. Okay, so I'll just stop